What's up, everybody? It's Peter Tragos, the lawyer you know, and on this channel, we break down the trials and cases you care most about so you can understand how the American civil and criminal justice system works. And we try to make sure you understand what your rights are in every situation, which is why we try to walk you through the entire legal process while also answering your insightful questions along the way. And while it's not legal advice, it's always exciting. So buckle up for another episode of The Lawyer You Know. What's up, everybody, and welcome in after another week of the Murdaugh trial. And it seems like we might only be 3 weeks into a 5-week trial instead of potentially having the case go to the jury today. There's been a lot of delays and a lot of information that has come out that doesn't seem super helpful. And so we're going to talk about some of that today, as some of that was the testimony from today, but also some very helpful testimony. So we're going to get to that and a whole lot more. So if you continue to like these videos, hit that like button now so we don't have to worry about it later. And a lot of people being very nice with the 200,000 subscriber congratulations coming through. So I want to say thank you to everybody. We've got a lot of plans when it comes to getting to 200K. And on tonight's live stream, we are going to be giving away a few memberships throughout. I don't really know how it works or how you claim them or anything like that. I just know that we've put some in the pipe to be grabbed for new members. So we're going to do some of that today. That's not really part of the 200K celebration type stuff we're going to be doing. We have some other stuff planned. We're going to do some custom Yetis we're going to give away like we did these custom hats last time. And there are certain things that still haven't even gotten out to our 150K subscriber winners, which is annoying. And so we've canceled those because of the website. Some of you have given me some advice on other websites to use. So I will take that under advisement and see if other websites will be better off for us. But we've canceled those and we're going to give different gifts that we can make sure get there. But we'll make sure everybody gets their prizes, and we have a whole lot more. We've got a special unboxing. We're going to do it during a lunchtime live next week is going to be my plan. We may have a guest or two on them as well. And as you can tell, my voice is better than yesterday, but it's better than yesterday at the end of the video, but not as good as it was in the beginning of the video. So we definitely don't have an hour and a half in us, maybe 45 minutes to an hour. I will answer all your questions as per usual. And we are going to go through the witnesses. We're going to talk about a recap, hit the highlights, show a couple clips. And there's a lot of clips from today's episode that when I was going back and getting the timestamps for them, I was like, a lot of this is kind of some argument between the lawyer that's interesting that I feel like I can explain to help you add some context to it. And I think it'll be important for the discussion to hit those points, but not a ton of testimony because I think Blanca was really important, but the rest of the testimony I did not find incredibly important for either side. I think they both made some points, but I didn't think it was incredibly important. So let's get into some of it together. And we started out with the cross-examination of Tinsley. Let me hit a couple of these here. All right. So first, Mark Tinsley on cross-examination. So I'm sorry, actually direct was how we started the day, was the direct. We finished the direct and then got to the cross-examination, if you can call it that. And he talked about the motion to compel and how it was continued because of the cancer treatments from May. It was continued to June. To me, they tried to make it sound like it was so difficult to continue this motion to compel, yet it didn't seem that difficult to continue the motion to compel. And I think there were a lot of reasons you can continue a motion to compel, including Randolph dying or Randolph even being on his deathbed. I would argue could be a reason to continue that motion to compel, especially what he meant to this community. So I think that's important. And I definitely don't think he needed to do this to his wife and son in order to continue that motion. But Tinsley made it seem like he would have to do that. And then he found out about the murder shortly after. And let's now listen to his explanation this time about Attila the Hun versus versus the likable defendant and why that made such a big difference. We've heard this before from him, but I want to listen to his explanation this time. And I want to point something out that I think is incredibly interesting to think about, that he's doing it in front of a jury right now. Keep that in mind as you listen to this, that he is explaining to this as we are in front of a jury, that each side is trying to convince them of something. And we'll go, I think 1.25 worked well yesterday. We don't have a ton of clips today. Here we go.
Was there any date set in the wake of all of this for it to be reheard?
There was not.
In the wake of the murders, did you generally understand or have an idea of at least what had happened to Maggie and Paul, how they'd been killed?
I did.
Just from media reports and the rest of it?
That's right.
And did that have any effect, that tragedy of their deaths, did that have any effect on your assessment of the boat case and how everything fit together, if things were how they initially appeared?
It would have affected. I mean, yes, it did, and it would have ended the case.
It would have ended the case against who?
Against Alex Murdaugh.
And explain that to the jury. Why? What had changed after this terrible tragedy?
Well, when you have a civil case, nice people get.
So he does say when you have a civil case, so I'll give him that. He does make the distinction there, but make no mistake about it. He knows exactly what he's doing and what he's targeting with this response.
Good verdicts. Okay. Just generally speaking. Yes, sir. Nice people get good verdicts. You really have to motivate a jury to want to help somebody in a civil case. And so if you compared, say, Attila the Hun with some sweet grandmother, who gets a better result? It's the sweet grandmother. If Alec is the victim of a vigilante, nobody's going to hold him accountable. Doesn't make any difference what he did or how clearly what he did contributed. The case would be over against Alec. And so initially, it could have been over. It appeared that it was going to be over against Alec because I had other defendants. I had Parker's convenience store that clearly violated its rules. And so
what did he say? Nice people get good verdicts. Somebody else just said that in the chat. I'm looking for it. Somebody said, nice people get good verdicts. And that is exactly what he said. Nice people do, in fact, get good verdicts, which would mean in turn that Attila the Hun and bad people get bad verdicts. And what has the Attorney General's office spent the last 3 days convincing this jury of? That Alec Murdaugh is a bad person. He steals from people. He uses people's trust and convinces them of things in order to screw them. He commits fraud. He doesn't care about rules. He doesn't care about laws. He doesn't care about what judges say, what banks say. He doesn't care about committing crimes. No, daggone, it doesn't mean every person that gets a reasonable verdict is good. I'm just saying this is his testimony right now. I am not saying that. I think there are some bad people that get good verdicts. I think there are some good people that get good verdicts. Generally, more sympathetic plaintiffs do better in PI cases. He's absolutely right. But I'm talking about this in a context that we are literally assassinating the character of a person, rightfully so, because he's got poor character. But that is not what you're supposed to do to prove a crime. You're supposed to prove it with facts and evidence that prove that he committed the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. So that's why I think it's just so interesting, because good people get good verdicts, which then in turn means bad people get bad verdicts. What would be a bad verdict for this bad person sitting over there in this in that chair? It would be guilty. I think it's very interesting. Amy K, it looks like you were gifted a membership. Glad you turned it on. All right, let's keep listening here.
you wouldn't want a very sympathetic person in your case. when you have somebody who clearly violated the rules and caused this tragedy. So it would have been over against him.
You wouldn't want a sympathetic person in the case, which we've seen Satterfield, and we've seen the CFO, and we've seen Miss Shelley, and we've seen all these sympathetic people testify in this case against the bad man over there. Most of them having nothing to do with murder, but definitely having to do with the fact that Alec Murdaugh is a bad person. And what does he say? Usually the sympathetic people win.
The sympathies of the case had changed if Alec had truly been, his family had been the victim of some vigilante or something like that.
The sympathies would have changed if that had been true.
And assessing those sympathies and those emotions in a case like this is what you do as a plaintiff's lawyer. Is that correct?
It's what we try to do.
And it's what Alec Murdaugh used to do as well when he was a plaintiff's lawyer.
I think he was good at reading people and knowing what made them tick.
Thank you, Mr. Tinsley. Nothing further at this time. Please answer any questions that Vince may have.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. In case you don't follow me on Twitter, here comes the cross-examination we've all been waiting for. Is he going to dig in? Is he going to show this bias? Is he going to talk about GoFundMe? Is he going to talk about how much he hates Alec Murdaugh? Most of you probably follow me on Twitter at Tragos Law, so you know that this is a little wink, wink. And there just ain't much here. He is very, I don't want to say nervous, but he's very pointed about what he's asking to not open the door to an explanation. Tinsley does get some kind of disrespectful shots in about stop looking down at the ground. I can't hear you. Look up here, son. That's what I feel like he wanted to say to this guy. Tinsley could not look less nervous, by the way.
Barber.
Good morning, Mr. Tinsley.
Good morning.
Maybe just start asking a couple of questions that I think are just some things that we could agree on before maybe getting to some other things.
I want to ask you a question I think we can agree to before we get into other things. You don't really end up getting to anything.
Was there any life insurance for Maggie or Paul?
I don't believe there was any life insurance on anybody, including Alec.
That's an interesting just kind of side point. So first off, it confirms there was no life insurance on Maggie or Paul, which again helps with the whole motive of murder. But we know the whole side of the road cousin Eddie story. So I'm pretty sure there was life insurance for Alec. So this was kind of interesting. Maybe there wasn't back then and he got some life. No, but we know that life insurance policy was more than 2 years old at the time of the side of the road incident. So that was just an interesting side comment. Not that it's that important for the Alec life insurance was not important for this case, but the Maggie and Paul was. So good job by this defense attorney. You got a point. That's the point. You want to come up here and get a little bit of good info for you and then go sit down.
And if this motions hearing, which was not just the motion to compel, it was other motions, correct, on June the 10th?
Yeah, there were some other motions.
And if that hearing had gone forward, at least for the motion to compel, this would have been another step in the process? Right. In other words, I believe it was your previous testimony. I think it's fair to say that there wouldn't have been an explosion on June the 10th, that this would have been another step, but it wasn't the end point.
So what happened?
Is that correct, sir? Yes or no?
So if you remember from his proffered testimony, he said the fire wasn't necessarily started on June 10th, but a lot of oxygen was added then. That's what this defense attorney is trying to get Tinsley to agree to. But Tinsley's like, I want to explain my answer, baby. I got some stuff to say about Buddy over there. And I want to say it to this jury. Thank you, I Hear Circus Music, for the super sticker.
Am I misstating your testimony? There wouldn't have been an explosion on June the 10th?
You're jumping around, so it's hard for me to follow.
I apologize.
Well, if you let me finish.
No,
I would like to ask the witness to be allowed.
No, please don't. Please don't. AG's like, I'd like for Mr. Tinsley to say whatever he wants to say at this point.
Finish his answer to one of those questions, and I object to one of the question.
Pose one question.
Yes, Your Honor. Did you previously testify, I think that it's fair to say there wouldn't have been an explosion on June the 10th?
I'm sorry,
Yes
you
or
were
no?
looking down. I couldn't hear what you said.
I'm sorry.
This is just sparring at this point. I'm sorry you were looking down. I couldn't hear what you had to say. But the defense attorney is being very careful and being very pointed on the fact that he is reading he's reading Tinsley's prior testimony. So Tinsley knows if he disagrees, he has the impeachment material right in front of him. He's making it clear to everybody in the courtroom. He is reading prior testimony. Tinsley's trying to embarrass him. Tinsley is trying to make him go away from just reading the very specific language of the question. But at this point, the attorney's doing the right thing and sticking to the question.
So I was reading it. I think it's fair to say that there wouldn't have been
says, sorry, I'm reading it.
explosion on June the 10th. But was that your?
This would be improper in the courtrooms I practice in. This would be improper impeachment. But in this courtroom, it does seem to fly, and lots of lawyers have done it.
Did you testify? Did those words come from that stand when you previously testified? Yes or no?
I'm not trying to give you a hard time. You looked down again, and I could not understand what you said.
I
Was there an explosion?
apologize for that. I'll hold it up. I'm just trying to read it accurately. I think it's fair to say that there wouldn't have been an explosion on June the 10th. Yes or no? Was that your testimony previously? Just yes or no?
It's possible. You're trying to turn it into something it's not, but I probably said words to that effect.
Okay.
You're trying to turn it into something it's not, but I probably said words to that effect, which is a way of saying yes. Okay. Trying to give a little hint to the jury. This slimy trial lawyer is trying to twist my words, is what Tinsley's saying to the jury, even though you can call us all slimy trial lawyers if that's what you're saying. Mister, I just file documents to put pressure on people. It's easy for lawyers to point the finger at each other, but the point is, you did say that, right, Mr. Tinsley? You did say that. Yes, I said it. I don't know why people find it so hard. I judge these mock trial competitions. It's kind of a side story. I judge these mock trial competitions, and the law students make the absolute worst witnesses. And I always tell them, saying, don't be a jerk on the stand and take away from the lawyering. Because if you fight about everything, most of the time people don't like you. Lawyers make bad witnesses sometimes. If you don't like the whole this type of response, but if the jury likes the lawyer, they are going to give you so much to work with as the AG's office. It's a little different in a criminal case like this, where they are just given free reign to hammer away at Alec Murdaugh the entire time they're on the stand.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
And redirect.
I mean, that is just brutal that's what you end on. I mean, you're trying to twist into something I want. And I'm going to rewind it again so you can look at Tinsley's face. Tinsley's face is almost like, yep, that's what I thought. I'm going to rewind it here just a second.
We said words to that effect.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
And redirect.
Literally with just a slight smirk to the jury there. So yeah, it was interesting. And again, I said, thank you, Michelle. We talked about this last night. I kind of said this is along the lines of what I would have done. I probably would have hit a couple more easy points, but again, not letting him explain. But it is really something that he only got really 2 points, I guess, no life insurance, and that it didn't explode on June 10th, or it wasn't going to explode on June 10th, and sat down. I mean, it was something. I mean, it was something. And it was just an interesting little swing there. Melanie C. Uhtred, 200K. Congratulations. We're all so proud of you. Thank you so much, Melanie C. I see a couple of big super chats coming in here, so I want to highlight them. I really appreciate you guys, especially the ride or dies that have been with me. I got ride or die on the mind because I watched MTV's The Challenge. I don't know if any of you guys do. Season finale coming up next week. But yeah, and Melanie's awesome. We got a nice Uhtred Last Kingdom connection. And then on redirect, the AG's office just kind of got out that you're continuing to put pressure on Alec with these motions. Then we get to the bulk of the most important testimony of the day today, and that was Blanca. Former military, mother of 5, worked in law enforcement a little bit, ends up assisting the Murdaughs with the house after she finds Alec Murdaugh to help a Spanish-speaking friend of her find a better lawyer. She starts translating a little bit from him. We've had people over the years that work with like the Hispanic outreach community that reach out to our office and look for offices to connect, and they'll help translate and stuff like that. Not unusual at all. But she starts working for them, becomes really good friends with them. She has conversations with Maggie, and they would talk about personal things. I, for one, kept waiting for the conversation her and Maggie had about Maggie wanting to get a divorce. Did any of you think that was coming? Because I certainly thought that was coming. And it just never came. We got some other indications that we'll talk about later. But every time they started talking about these private conversations, they confided in each other about personal things. I was like, so did she ever tell you she wanted to get a divorce? The answer is no. They never had that conversation. All the insinuating about staying at Edisto. She found her wedding band under the seat of the car when she was cleaning it out. Is that what you do if you want to get a divorce and you take your wedding band off? Do you drop it underneath the seat of your car, or is that somewhere you lose your wedding ring? I don't know, but it doesn't prove anything is the point. Then I thought they were working towards, Alec Murdaugh said that Blanca cooked him dinner that night. And it doesn't sound like she did, since she said she wasn't there all night. Gail Grace, thank you so much for this big super chat here as well. But again, they worked towards the fact that Blanca did in fact come, and she did cook dinner for all three of them. Now, there was a couple very devastating points that Blanca made that are going to hurt Alec Murdaugh. One is she absolutely, by her testimony, believes Alec Murdaugh lured Maggie and Paul to Moselle that night, and without him texting them about that, they would not be there. We find out later from the caregiver that the night before, they did go and bring donuts to the dad. And so, they were going there later at night. They were together. So it doesn't seem crazy to me, but definitely seems like for Blanca, for somebody that's around him all the time, this was unusual, out of the ordinary. And the conversations her and Maggie had, Maggie was worried about Alec. I thought this looked good for Alec Murdaugh, that he's the one that they always called. He's the one that would always go to the parents' aid. He's the one that would always help the parents. So I thought that was something that, was a good look for him personally. Cerebellum is also giving out memberships and gifting memberships. But yeah, so I thought that was a positive for him, that he's the responsible one they called. He's the one that would always help. He's the one that would always fix the problems. Seems like he had a lot of pressure on his head, not just his own stuff, but family stuff, kids stuff. He was the one that, took the brunt of it, is what I got from her testimony. And Maggie was worried about that and kind of hated that. She did make dinner and then she left. She did see Alex Murdaugh leave the morning of the 7th, which was important and also damning. The fact that he was wearing certain clothes, which we'll get into. I guess we can get into that now. Yeah, she was called. She told what happened. She dropped the phone. She was devastated. But she was very clear on what Alec Murdaugh was wearing the day of the 7th when he went to his office. It was a seafoam, I think green, polo. And it's amazing to me. And I put a comment on Twitter, like, how many seafoam green shirts does one guy have? And it seems like in that area, and somebody else told me with redheads, colors can be difficult, and that's a common color. I learn something new every day from this community, which is amazing. And so he had a polo with just 3 buttons. She was very clear, which was different than the Columbia style shirt he was wearing later with, I think, more buttons, same color. I'm pretty sure her testimony was she never saw either of those shirts again. And she also never saw the leather shoes he wore to work or the house shoes that he wore ever again either. I don't think the state made that clear enough, except for the fact that it does seem like she never saw either of those again. But then we heard he packed up some of his own stuff and moved to the other house. He was buying new clothes. Well, he was buying new clothes because he lost a lot of weight. So did he never wear those shirts again or get rid of those shirts because he lost weight? Or does it prove he committed murder? Then we hear about her walking through the house. Alec told her to go clean up, and she did go clean up. And he told her which door to walk in, except for the fact that she said she did see Sled. She saw Sled walking through the house, and Sled looked like they were searching the house and walking through it before she ever got there. So all the testimony we're about to hear about what she saw in the house is after Sled already went through and did their investigation. I know a lot of you are telling me on Twitter, they're in Alec's pocket. They didn't want to go against his powerful family. They're helping him out, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the reason is, and you all are probably right. But guess what? That screws up a murder prosecution. That screws up a case. The fact that they were in his pocket and now they're not, still makes this difficult as all get out. And it makes it very difficult for the AG's office to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. So I think that's something that we have to remember is just because he was in their pocket or they were in his pocket doesn't mean they can fix it all now, because we heard she saw the pots and pans that were in the fridge. I wrote down in my notes, didn't we hear that there was like 10 or 15 people there that were helping Alec that felt so bad for him? He wasn't in a good state of mind. I'm sure somebody went inside and put the food away if it was still on the stove. Well, she made it seem like it was very uncharacteristic for it to put away like that. It didn't make any sense. But does that prove murder? And then one of you pointed out on my Twitter timeline, so not only did he commit the murders and clean up and ditch the guns and ditch the clothes and all this stuff, but he also went inside and cleaned up dinner after, all in the 16 minutes or whatever it was. It just doesn't make sense to me. I'm not saying it couldn't have happened. Just stay with me. I am not saying it is impossible for Alec Murdaugh to have committed these murders. I am saying none of this fits in with the state's case, to me. But as I continue to tweet and go back and forth with you guys on Twitter, which has been fun and respectful for the most part, and I enjoy that, I always remember something I've always believed since I've started trying cases and why jury selection is so important and getting to know the jurors and trying to let the jurors know what I like to know about you guys, and if some of you that become my clients, what I'm about and learning what you're about. I think that's really important. And if a jury is with you and they believe you and they trust you, they're going to look at the evidence in the way that you want them to. So if I put someone like Blanca on the stand and she says, it was very weird what time he did this. It was very weird how the pots and pans were in there. It was very weird how I didn't see that shirt. They're like, yup, that's because he committed the murder. But if I'm the defense and you believe the cross-examination I'm doing, and if I build a good rapport with you and you believe the witnesses, when I ask them questions that it's actually pointing toward this, and now you're kind of swung to my side, and I come up and cross-examine her and I say, weren't there a lot of people there that night? You're like, yeah, the dishes don't mean anything. Yeah, those were his khaki pants. There was no blood on them. Yeah, she's actually not even sure if she saw the shirt or not, so maybe she did see the shirt. That is how people think. Once they start to attach to a side as jurors for the most part, that's why studies show most jurors' minds are not changed in closing argument. Some are, and some wait to make their decision till the end, but most are firmly entrenched in a side much earlier on in a case than you'd expect. And this is the reason why. They dig deeper. They try to look for something to prove what they think happened. And I'm not saying it's anything wrong with any of you guys. I'm sure I do it as well. But I think it's very interesting to think about, and kind of feels that way as I continue to talk to people about this case. All the polls that I've seen, 75, 80, 90% say he's guilty at this point. Think that's interesting. I would be interested to see what the percentage was before the trial even started, or after like day one, after the AG's opening statement. Okay. So the khaki pants, the puddle on the ground, and the maybe or maybe I didn't see the shirt. So khaki pants were hung up. She says they're probably the same ones in that TikTok video from earlier, or whatever, Snapchat, whatever the video is, when he's holding the tree earlier in the day, when he was wearing the Columbia style shirt that she says was not the shirt he wore when he went to work because he fixed the collar. Once again, we had this prosecutor touching her arm, getting in her face, having what the judge called a personal conversation. He's my least favorite to watch question a witness. But she did confirm those are probably the same khaki pants because he doesn't wear a ton of khaki pants. And again, let's remember, SLED went through the house. Did they photograph the khaki pants? Did they take the khaki pants for testing? Did they photograph the puddle on the ground? Did they look at the damp towel? Did they photograph it? Did they look in the shower? Because the state absolutely wants us to believe that that is where he showered off after committing the murders. Now, maybe he hosed off at the kennels and then went there and showered, but they absolutely want us to believe that. And SLED walked right past it. And now they're trying to bring Blanca in, and I think she's incredibly believable. I thought she was an amazing witness, but her testifying that she saw the khaki pants and the puddle on the ground and the damp towel cannot possibly connect him to murder if SLED didn't even think it was important enough to gather his evidence. But now we're trying to say, oh, it proves it. I have a hard time with that. I see some of you guys have Blanca questions here, like Jacuzzi. Blanca confirmed to me that law enforcement did a poor job at the scene, whether it was AM or somewhere else. I 100% agree with you. Diane says, do you think the defense or prosecution watch any of these shows? I think it would help their cases to see what we think. I think it would too. I have no idea if they actually do or not. Bev, Did you know 200,000 pounds is 10 and a half times as heavy as a T-Rex? Congratulations. Looking forward to 200,000 more. That's awesome. Tori, being one of the OGs of the Lawyer You Know channel, I'm so proud to be a part of such a graceful, caring, and energetic family. I love the law, and I love hearing different people bringing their thoughts and ideas. Couldn't have said it better myself. Myra, your voice sounds better, Pete, but hopefully this weekend helps you fully recoup. Congrats on 200K. Thanks for all you do and help us understanding different trials. I agree with you, and I'm hopeful the voice comes back as well. Bex, thank you, Peter, and thank you, Nicole Wheeler, for membership. You guys rock. So a bunch of people are gifting memberships. It's just kind of how this channel works. It's kind of how this community works. A lot of generosity, a lot of fun. Somebody said, what do you get for the memberships? We do once a month a members-only video. We do some members-only posts and votes and polls and things like that. But a lot of times it's just to have the emoji, to know that you're a super supporter of the channel, on the jury, whatever. Don't ever feel like you have to join the membership crew. It's just some fun extra stuff that we do together with the members. Okay. So let's see what else. Yeah, and I said, congratulations with Blanca. Not sarcastic to Blanca, but more to the Attorney General's office. Congratulations. You have proven that at one point in the day, he had a certain pair of clothes on and he changed into the white t-shirt and shorts that everybody knows at this point, and we all agree he was wearing a different pair of clothes, and then he put that pair of clothes. It's when. And is the other set of clothes covered in blood? Because this set of clothes is not. He never came back to the property. She lived there afterwards, and she still has Bubba with her. And the most damning part of her testimony came at the end. In August of 21, after the murders, she had a conversation with Alec Murdaugh where he directed her or told her what shirt he was wearing. And she felt uncomfortable because she said, she thought in her head, that is not the shirt you were wearing. Why are you trying to do this? And he basically said some video leaked and he was worried. So he wanted to get their story straight, basically. Some interesting points I thought of with that. Very damning. And if the jury wants it to convict, boom, that's another nail in the coffin. However, if that Columbia shirt and that polo, both seafoam green or whatever color seafoam is, if they're both missing, why does it matter which one she says he was wearing? If he changed 2 times, 3 times, 10 times, and all the shirts are missing, he couldn't have murdered him wearing 10 different shirts or 2 different shirts. So why would he want her to change her testimony if he got rid of both the polo and the Columbia style shirt? I just don't get that. There's just so much of this that does not make sense to me. And a lot of times prosecutors don't have to explain every detail, and a jury's with them. They usually start with them. They usually believe them. They usually believe law enforcement. But to me, that just, if you ask critical questions and you scrutinize all this, I don't get it. So he was trying to get stories straight. I feel like the timeline has already confirmed that there is no importance whether he was there 15 or 20 minutes or 30 or 40 minutes. The timeline with the car seems to prove 15 or 20 minutes. But if it was 30 or 40 minutes, why does that matter if it all happened after the murders occurred? But that's one of the things he lied about. Same thing with the kennels. I can see why he lied about the kennels, and that's the biggest lie because he was there just minutes before the murders occurred. But he still could have left before it happened. And it seems like the defense is just kind of admitting he was at the kennels at this point. I think they have to, because over and over again, they say he was there. And that's the most damning piece of evidence, I think. He was there just minutes before. Nobody else had the opportunity. Nobody else had the financial motive. He did it. That's what I would focus on in closing. He asked for a copy or picture of medical insurance card. I don't understand what the relevance of that was. And then, of course, we got what she found in the car. So I am going to skip here to the end of her testimony, which I think is just absolutely horrible form by the prosecutor. When you get objected to and you know the answer is what you want, but is objectionable, and then to circumvent that proper objection, you then say the answer you want in the question, ring the bell for the jury to hear. I hate that. I hate that. I hate that. I hate that. The lead attorney general would have never done that. And that's why I've been giving him a lot of credit throughout the case for if it's even close, he stops and asks the judge. Once the judge gives him permission, he goes full bore as he should. I mean, listen, I wouldn't have done it this way, but if the judge tells you you can, boom, he's going to go in. but I do not like the way this guy handled this situation. So, but we'll watch it together here and you guys can let me know what you think.
Areas at the house, and she had some pillows that she was going to return. And as I moved the seat to clean, to vacuum underneath the driver's side seat, I found her ring.
Or what?
Her ring. Her wedding band.
Now, did Maggie, based on your time with her experience, like being at Moselle by herself?
No.
And leading up to the murders, was she anxious about anything?
Was she anxious about anything? They have prepped this. This is a tip off and an indication of what she should say next. Here's where the objection comes in, and then you'll see the stuff that really ticks me off when lawyers do this in trial. Thank you to all the congratulatory super chats coming in. These are awesome. I love reading these.
She had a conversation with me. A few months prior. I walked in the house and Maggie said, "Hey, Blanca," she said, "I got to talk to you. I got something to tell you." And so she said, "Let me make."
Again, I'm thinking I want to get a divorce. That's what I'm thinking the whole time.
Make some coffee. And she went and made a pot of coffee. She made me a cup. She made herself a cup, and we went. She said, "Let's go talk." And we went into the hunting room, and she closed the door because Alec was sleeping in the bedroom, which is on the other side of the house, but she closed the door. When Maggie closed the door,
Your side.
Response.
I think he's right. I think it is hearsay, but watch what he does as his response.
Judge, I think, was she anxious about money issues?
That's the worst. It's like he's saying his objection because he doesn't want her to say financial issues that came from Maggie, which is hearsay, going to prove the truth of the matter, that she was afraid of the financial issues, which is the motive for murder in this case. You cannot do that. The judge ends up allowing it. Shocker. But that is so horrible. Harpoolian is pissed. He stands up. I'm going to rewind it one more time so you can see the back and forth on it again. It's that whatever you think about Harpoolian, and I'm about to tell him he has a really bad, simple legal argument coming up here that is just totally wrong. We'll get there, but on this point, he's right.
Judge, I think, was she anxious about money issues?
I object to.
I know your objection, and
But he is.
I understand your objection. Well, I don't care what you're doing. There's an objection to
He's like, I'm trying to, the judge like, I don't care what you're doing. Oh gosh, this was good. There was some really good legal sparring today.
the previous question. The objection is sustained. While entertaining the objection, you cannot pose another question. The objection is sustained.
I apologize.
I hesitate, but this is a matter that needs to be put on the record.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, have you go to the jury room. Please not discuss the case.
I always wonder what jurors think when they can tell which lawyer is the reason for them taking a break and stepping out. What do you guys think? I learned so much from here. Again, I put this on Twitter. As a trial lawyer, I learned so much from doing these videos. It's invaluable, and I appreciate you guys so much for giving me your thoughts. A penny for your thoughts. But if you can tell one lawyer is really frustrated, thinking he's getting a bad call, and he wants to put something on the record, it's got to happen outside the presence of the jury. Are you like, that lawyer is so annoying? Or are you thinking, and again, you guys have a lot more information than just your average juror, but are you thinking, I get it, he's got to do his job, he's got to protect his client, protect the record? Let me know in the chat what you guys think about that. Thank you, Betty C. and Wendy Latham. So they're clearing the jury from the courtroom, and we are going to get the argument here, which I think is an interesting argument. No surprise who wins, but I do think it's a very, very interesting argument. Jay is one of the new ride or dies. Yeah, ride or dies don't have to be OGs. They can be new. I know. I love
Yes, sir.
this.
Everyone will be seated. Yes.
I objected to a conversation. We're aware of that conversation, but I objected knowing where he was going, which was, and in that same interview, by the way, that she gave about his statement where Maggie said that she was concerned about money, she also indicated Maggie was never concerned about money.
That's interesting, right? We already know it's inconsistent, but as we've seen in so many other witnesses, totally inconsistent testimony, still comes out, and she did in fact say that Maggie said she was stressed about the financial issues, even though later she said she wasn't. She's allowed to testify to one of those inconsistent statements, which it seems like she's doing here.
Either way, it's hearsay. He said before Your Honor ruled, was she concerned about money or wasn't she concerned about money? He testified, which is to hearsay. I would move for mistrial. I think it's unduly prejudicial based on the.
He's right. He testified to exactly what he knew was inadmissible and should not have come in. And he moves for a mistrial. Did anybody think the judge was just going to be like, granted, we'll do this all over again. I'll see you guys in a few months. Yeah, no shot. Never going to get a mistrial for this, but protecting the record, fine. He asks for a mistrial, but the judge then just grants or overrules his objection anyway. So all of it's coming in anyway. So it's not even prejudicial, according to the judge.
Last 3 weeks, we've heard of financial misconduct on the part of the defendant. If I would move for mistrial. I would move that it's not mistrial because I don't think, even if you give this jury an instruction, you can't unring the bell. You can't correct that. And now I've had to draw attention to it, even more so by objecting to it. He knew that was wrong. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Meadows.
That question, I don't have to say it.
We're not here about apologies. Go ahead.
And I can't help. Judge, under 803, and what I should have brought to the court's attention first, 8033, we think this would be admissible. Hearsay exception, then existing mental, emotional, or physical condition. The statement of the declarant's then existing state of mind, emotion, sensation, or physical condition. We think it fits under that rule.
So they're getting it under her state of mind, her physical condition of anxiety. I think this is a stretch. They just want to say, and it's the annoying thing is, we can make these arguments. We are lawyers, but everybody knows they want her to say she was scared of the financial stress. And then she even digs deeper into Alec Murdaugh and just rips out his soul when she actually testifies to it. And she says, Maggie always felt like he wasn't truthful with her and didn't give her all the information. It was like, oh, that's not good.
How she was, and that's all I was going to listen. That's it. I want to go, and hearsay was coming out a little bit there. A lot of hearsays come out in this trial. They wasn't objecting. It just was rolling. I wasn't trying to plan that far ahead. But I do think respectfully it comes in there. We'd like you to consider.
So let me tell you when you feel like you're not making a good argument. This inadmissible evidence has been coming in the whole trial, Judge. So I just kind of thought we were going to continue to let inadmissible evidence in like hearsay. It's like, yeah, no, I don't think anybody's purposely letting inadmissible hearsay in. He's right. Some has come in, but that's not a very great argument in my opinion. I do believe he wasn't really planning that far ahead. I think he was just trying to get that point across and thinking of different ways to ask questions. They're leading so many witnesses that they've had to think of different ways to ask questions in non-leading manners, which they're struggling with. But I did think that was like kind of funny. He's like, oh, we've been letting hearsay in the whole time, Your Honor. What's the big deal? I thought we were just going to keep rolling with it.
Under 8033, Judge. And that's what I should have said before I asked the question. Again, for the record, say I'm sorry.
8033, the following are not excluded by the hearsay rule, even though the declarant is available as a witness. A statement of the declarant's then existing state of mind, emotion, sensation, or physical condition, such as intent, plan, motive, design, mental feelings, pain, and bodily health, but not including a statement of memory or belief to prove the fact remembered or believed, unless it relates to the execution, revocation, identification, or terms of declarant's will. All right, Mr. Harpootlian?
Obviously, Your Honor, I don't think that's covered by 803.
Why not?
Well, because it's the declarant's. Maybe we need to ask her exactly what she said before we rule on it. The only testimony we've heard on that point is his.
We heard a question, then an objection, and then another question while the court was listening to your objection.
Yes.
So we'll have a proffer of this testimony and see where it's going.
Maggie Murdaugh, anxious to anything the days leading to murder, she expressed to you.
Yes, sir.
Please tell the judge what it was.
She was worried because a lawsuit had been presented stating that they wanted $30 million. Maggie was crying. Maggie said, we don't have that kind of money, Blanca. And that's what she used to call me. She said, we don't have that. She said, if I could give them everything that I got and make this go away, she said, I would do it in a heartbeat. She said, I'll start over. We'll start over. She said, I just want it gone.
This moment, we're listening to a proffer. Go ahead.
Would that be instead of that long?
The judge lets it in. Okay. Spoiler alert, the judge lets it in. Janet stuttered. Very good point. Not saying with 100% certainty anything's going to happen. You never know what a jury's going to do. And I think Tinsley said juries do crazy things all the time. All right, so let's finish Blanca's testimony. I told you what she said about that, and I actually think it came out worse for them. And then Dick starts the cross-examination, and he totally fumbles the beginning. Oh, we've never met before. She's like, yes, we have, sir, but you're too much of a big shot to remember me. She doesn't say that, but that's kind of what I got from it. But his good old boy, hey, how's it going? I try a lot of cases against lawyers that try to do this, especially some guys have been doing it a long time, know a lot of people. The last trial I had, every expert witness that we called, we've seen each other in a lot of these cases, haven't we, Dr. So-and-so? I've met you plenty of times, haven't I? Like, oh, we're big shots. We know all this. This guy is on all these cases. And guess what? The jury didn't buy one bit of it. The jury didn't buy one bit of it. And he's been trying to, act buddy-buddy with these witnesses and stuff, but didn't work here. So we have these financial stressors. We have that, they get in an argument once in a while on Blanca's direct. But then on cross, Maggie was his all. He adored her. She never saw them have violent arguments. Their arguments were just about paint color, where Maggie would want a specific white and Alec was like, whatever white. I've literally had that conversation with my wife. And then the most common complaint, and any of you women out there, tell me if you've complained about this for your husbands. Husbands out there, has your wife ever complained about it? Like the situation with Alex and Maggie. He's a busy lawyer, having lots of cases. We heard that from Tinsley, but also juggling all this fraud and financial theft at the same time. Obviously a busy guy and a fidgety guy. She's like, Maggie was always annoyed because she just wanted him to stop and listen to her. And Harpoolian's like, that's a pretty common thing in marriages, right? And she doesn't necessarily say yes, but then he's like, my wife complains about it all the time. Do you ever complain to your husband? And she's like, yeah, all the time. And I wish I could say that I've never heard that complaint, but that would be a lie. And I don't like to lie to you guys. My wife has literally sent me like TikToks or whatever of a wife following her husband around the house with a water bottle, trying to tell him something. And, he's like putting his clothes away or, doing something else or working or whatever. Very common argument to have. Talked about 15 people being in the house. And we talked about a couple other things that were, not crazy important, but he got to the most important part of his cross-examination that we're all wondering, and he had to get to because it's incredibly important for their case, where he asks the questions about all the blood she must have seen if Alec cleaned himself up in the bathroom.
Specificity, he says, so those shoes. I don't know what he's.
I'm sorry, the shoes that you say you saw in the Snapchat photo, you say you never saw again, right?
That is correct.
Okay, you don't know whether he wore those shoes the night of the 7th over to his mama's house, do you?
I don't know that. I wasn't
Okay,
there.
you don't know what he wore over there, correct?
That's correct. I wasn't there.
He may have even worn that shirt that you said you never saw again, correct?
Objection.
Objections over.
Right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, if somebody alleged that those khaki pants was what Alex was wearing the night of the...
I need to hear the question.
I can't finish the question. I'm sorry, Your Honor. Let me state this.
Poulian just starts pissing and moaning at this point about all the objections and interruptions. And frankly, they teach lawyers to do it for that purpose. So if you show your hand that you're getting frustrated and losing your train of thought, then maybe he's just going to keep objecting.
If somebody were to say that Alec Murdaugh, as ridiculous as it sounds, was wearing those khaki pants when he...
Objection.
Objection.
He's right. You cannot say stuff like as ridiculous as it sounds. You cannot say that in a question. But he tried to bully him by saying all these interruptions, Judge. He tried to bully the prosecutor saying, so sit down and be quiet. Let me ask my question. Prosecutor's not going to get bullied, especially not that guy. Thank you, Class Act Beauty.
Sustained.
Okay. Let me put it this way. Did you see any blood on those khaki pants?
No, sir.
You washed them, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you put anything on them to get blood stains out? I mean, would it be...
Are you saying that I remove bloodstains off of khaki pants?
I'm asking you rhetorically. I'm asking you, did you see any blood stains?
There appeared to be no bloodstains on those pants.
Okay. And in the bathroom, did you see any bloody footprints?
I did not.
Did you see any blood on that towel?
No, sir.
Did you see anything indicating to you there'd been anybody wearing bloody shoes or washing blood off, or anything that would indicate that somebody after a murder had gone back to that room, changed clothes, covered in blood, took a shower and changed clothes? Did you see anything that would indicate that?
Objections overruled.
Go ahead.
This is the first time that I have ever been in a situation where somebody was murdered.
Right.
I didn't know, as far as what you're asking me, if there was anything bloody in there. No, it did not appear to be anything bloody in there.
Did you clean the shower that day?
Yes, sir, I rinsed it off.
You rinsed it off. Nobody told you not to rinse off the shower?
No, sir.
Okay. Again, nobody from SWED, as that group went through, asked you, did you see bloody footprints? Did you see any evidence that there was anything bloody in that bathroom? Did anybody ask you that?
No, sir.
And your testimony is those khaki pants were there after SWED left,
Yes, sir.
and maybe even a shirt you can't remember.
Yes, or possibly a T-shirt, but I did not see it. I don't remember.
Okay, you don't remember what kind of shirt, if there was a shirt.
Without objection.
The objection is overruled.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then he looks at the prosecutor. He can't help himself. He keeps saying thank you, but he's right. He should be able to ask this stuff. It's not just a one side gets to act this stuff. Thank you, Evangeline Light.
Do you remember? I'm doing like Mr. Meadows now. I forgot the question.
That was a
But
shot.
Let me see if I can get this back on track.
That was a shot at the prosecutor. I'm feeling like him forgetting the question.
These interruptions are getting me a little askew. So I think you've already asked and answered that. Now let's talk a little bit about, let me talk a little bit about the cell phone service in Moselle. You had a cell phone
Yes, sir.
and the servicer was who?
All right. She confirms that the service is kind of spotty in different situations. And then we start getting into the objections where I think Harpoolian just kind of loses his train of thought because he starts making an argument that is just totally wrong. But I thought it'd be interesting for us to watch together. Before we get to that, though, thank you, Azam. You guys are great. And that's why I love that you're here. Let me give some answers to questions that I had. First off, Lenora Gray makes a great point. He didn't lose that much weight in a week. That's true. The insurance card was on the day of the fake suicide. Lisa Thompson also said insurance cards he asked the day before the attempted suicide. Lauren L. also said he asked for the insurance card the day before the roadside incident. Tammy says no cell service, so time phone stopped isn't necessarily the time of the murders. Someone set his mom's house on fire. Still no evidence of any clothes anywhere. Today corroborated Alex's story to me. And we're going to get to the cell phone guy here in a second. We are going to get to him in a second. Blanca gave two different responses when she was proffered than when she was asked in direct. First response was much better for AM. I agree with you. Is that allowed? It's not supposed to be like that, but it happens very often because these lay witnesses are just telling their story. They're not trying to give memorized answers, but I think it's going to be part of the appeal for sure. Medical cards, aim for truth. The morning he was shot on roadside, still no burden met. I agree with you there. John O'Rourke thinks the judge is leaving things open for an appeal. Great lawyering. I do think it's pretty good lawyering. It's unorganized at times and there are issues, but Greg Hall Art is call for mistrial grounds for appeal. So many times you have to ask for a mistrial in order to protect an argument for appeal. That's probably what he was doing this for. Rose, who's the man with the glasses behind AM? I am not sure. I don't know who everybody is kind of back there. Myra, is that low-key insulting the judge and how he runs his courtroom? I'm trying to figure out when you probably wrote this. It's hard for me to keep up with the chat because I'm just talking nonstop. If you're saying with the objections maybe you mean for when I was talking about how the prosecutor's acting. Judges make rules for their own courtrooms. Prosecutors do what they want. Sometimes the judge lets lawyers, they give them enough rope to hang themselves. And they're like, if you want to run up in the jury's face, go for it. But there are going to be some jurors that hate that. Gingy Probs, end of the week. Today moved me away from actual innocence. Miss Shelley said she never He never comes around at that night. It's unusual, not never. But Maggie is mad because he's always going over at night. State still needs to tell a story. I agree with you. That's a good inconsistency you picked up there. Kathy Hutton, did anyone hear Blanca state someone tried to burn the house down? Yes. Let me see. I had that in my notes. Where was that? Can't remember where that was. I didn't think it was significant for any of the murder stuff. She did end up testifying that he's a double XL, never really wore an XL. He had too many raincoats to count. She had never seen that blue raincoat in his closet, literally ever. It was a Vineyard Vine shirt. On redirect, they talk about how he was buying new Vineyard Vine shirt, but then he lost the weight, but didn't lose the weight quick enough. Again, just so much back and forth. Somebody put on Twitter, this is like a choose your own adventure story. It's hard to keep track of, and I agree with that. But let's listen to some more lawyer arguments here before we finish the last couple of less significant witnesses.
Examination.
No objection to hearsay.
It felt more like he was trying to convince me of the shirt that he was wearing.
Did he tell you that he just finished?
Objection.
I'm sorry, just asking if he told you something.
Objection.
Cross-examination.
No objection to hearsay for the record.
I need to hear the question,
Did,
number one. Number two is cross-examination. Go ahead.
did he tell you that he just finished
Objection.
meeting? Do you want me to pose the question, Your Honor, or not?
All right. I'm going to send it
It's
to
the same thing that just happened to him. Did he say this? Well, we don't want to hear what he said because that's inadmissible. So if you tell the jury, you're ringing the bell, Mr. Harpoolian, which is exactly what you argued against.
to the jury room.
He sends
Please
the
not
jury
discuss
out.
the case.
And Blanca looks annoyed. She looks over at the jury and kind of is like almost an eye roll there. But this lawyering is not good here in this argument. And I'm shocked that I'm really surprised at this argument we're about to hear.
Okay, what is the question?
Just wait 1 second, Your Honor. Let me see if I can get back on track. When you were talking with him in the little house in August, as we were talking about a moment ago, and he was talking about the shirt, did he tell you that he had just been interviewed by Swed, who'd shown him the Snapchat photo, and he was attempting to figure out what he was wearing that day? I mean, it's in a photo. Did he tell you that?
What's the specific question?
Did he, when he asked you the question about the shirt, did he tell you he just come from being interviewed by Swed?
No, sir, he didn't tell me that.
And what is the objection?
Your Honor, it's respect this hearsay. Statement is hearsay, that if he wants to do that, he can take the stand and do it. He's trying to offer the defendant's statement without him taking the stand. It's offered for the truth of the matter asserted. That's my objection.
All right, in response.
My response is, if you can't ask witnesses about what the defendant said to them, you're going to have a rough road to hoe going forward because.
I mean, dude, this is literally law school 101. That's exactly how it works in criminal cases. It's called the statements. The exception is a statement made by a party opponent, not a party. And he digs in, is like, he's a party. This is about being a part. It's like, no, he's the party opponent to us. He's not the party opponent to you. I do feel like it's totally unfair, but these are what the rules are. The state's allowed to say, did Murdaugh say this? You're not allowed to say, did Murdaugh say this? The judge gets this one exactly right by sustaining the objection. I cannot believe Harpoolian made this argument. Like literally, this is one of the first the exceptions to hearsay that you learn and use all the time. In civil cases, I get to say what their client said. They get to say what my client said, but I can't say my client said this to you. They can't say their client said this to you. That's how it works. We all know that. I can't believe you didn't come up with a better argument than that. Like I'm not offering it for the truth of the matter asserted, just the present sense impression of Mr. Murdaugh there. He wasn't trying to get you to lie. He was trying to figure something else out, or he was freaking out because of his interview with SLED.
It's a statement by the party opponent, if you will. I think they argued earlier on when we objected to one.
Yes, they did argue party opponent because Murdaugh is a party opponent.
It's not hearsay. There's an exception to hearsay by a statement by one of the parties.
It's not how it works, buddy.
Statement by the party opponent, being a statement by the party opponent, the defendant.
Mr. Murdaugh's statement to this woman.
Doris, most lawyers would not do that. They know better.
This matters. I've been doing this 35 years. He's on trial.
We know that.
But I'm just saying it's not a party opponent. He's trying to get in a statement from the defendant. Statements against interests that the state, there is a difference between the state asking what the defendant said and the defense. And if they hadn't objected to some, they thought that's their prerogative, but they're trying to offer the defendant's statement in evidence without him taking the stand. I respectfully think that's objectable as hearsay. He's a defendant on trial. They're offering it for the self-serving hearsay. They're offering it for the truth of the matter asserted. And I respectfully think that he's got to take a stand and get that information in.
And Your Honor, maybe I'm missing. What would your answer to that question be then? Did he tell you about talking to Sweat that day?
No, sir, he did not.
Okay.
Two allows us to ask the question and not the defense.
Yes, correct.
He didn't say.
Your Honor, he could get his whole case through witnesses and he wouldn't have to take a stand.
Absolutely.
And that's
You've
not
got a Fifth
appropriate.
Amendment right
No, sir.
to not take the stand.
That's right, but you can't.
I think Britain let you all debate the issue between the two.
I know.
I get that.
That's the judge saying, you guys are disrespecting me. Talk to me. I'm the one making the decision. They're having this debate about whether or not your Fifth Amendment right not to take the stand allows you to just get a bunch of defendant statements out. You can get the defendant statements out when it's proper and admissible, but you can't just, because he's not going to testify, say whatever he said. Harpoolian knows that. Come on. This was weird. This was I think they're getting tired. If you want my opinion, I think they're getting a little tired, and I can understand that because I'm getting a little tired too. All right. I am going to burn through a bunch of these questions here and then knock out the rest of the witnesses, which won't take a ton of time because I got to get out of here. My voice does not have very much more in it. Kelly Jansen, isn't it odd that rich people like this wouldn't have life insurance, especially Alec? What would Maggie's income be if Alec died? I agree. And I think Alec did have life insurance. Paul Dunlop, you might see the Murdaugh fam had to be moved to the back of the court. I guess Buster flipped off Tinsley. Have you ever dealt with this kind of thing? I've dealt with victims' families coming at criminal defendants before, but not exactly this. And I talked about this a little bit more yesterday. Marty, you need to rest your voice. We need you well. Yes, I can feel it starting to go, so I need to be out of here quick. Bev, Peter, would Blanca testify that Maggie told her she wanted a divorce not be considered hearsay? Not if it's her present sense impression and why she was anxious, Bev. The judge is letting that fly, so I think you could have got it in, just like the fear of financial anxiety. Esme, do you think the testimony today changed anything? Not really to me. I mean, I think Blanca added a little bit to the state, but I thought a lot of inconsistencies were brought out, and I actually think the cell phone guy did some damage to the state. Myra, P.S. When I watch your videos, my roommate will walk by and say, hey, it's that hot YouTuber who drinks my favorite drink. Is it this lemon perfect? I try these different flavors. It's pretty good. Maybe they'll sponsor me one day. Lily, what was the point of Maggie's clothes? Blanca said it was weird, but I didn't get why. Like, what does that prove? And somebody else said, where is this comment? So many comments. Here. Cuda Brown. Who commits murder? Then before leaving the scene, they take the food off the stove and put it in the refrigerator, and then they fold up their wife's pajamas and underwear and put it on the floor in the laundry room. I don't know what that proves. Just that it was weird and things were happening out of the ordinary. This guy was stealing millions of dollars. He was probably losing his mind. Lots of stuff that was out of the ordinary was happening. But did he commit murder? My kid's personal Uber. One thing EDB chat noticed, Maggie was upset he was always going to parents, but caretaker said he was rarely there at night. Extracurricular activities. So you mean he was doing stuff, leaving Maggie, but not necessarily going to the parents. That's another good argument for that. And I guess they could make that argument. Congrats on 200K. Jay, do you think the timeline is just wrong? It was all in his hands since he was the one that called. Could be. Carrie Shannon, question. Who is the man who sits right in front of the witness? He has a laptop in front of him. Maybe a court reporter. I don't know. I didn't notice that, if I'm being honest. Amy Lynn, what about someone trying to burn down the house? Yeah, I thought I had notes on that, but I couldn't find them. Dust in the road. Criminologist from Canada here. Congrats on 200K. Especially enjoy your professionalism and smart critical thinking. Way to go. Thank you, Dust in the road. It's awesome. Ashley Maston. Didn't he have time to clean up some of it after 911 call was made? It took 20 minutes for the first officer to arrive. But how did he know? So he knew it was going to take 20 minutes. What if it would have taken 1 minute? And it's like, whoops, I guess I didn't leave myself enough time to clean all this up. Christina jumping in late, but congratulations. Hope you and EDB are, I think, unknowingly tag teaming. But whoop, there it is. You're awesome. She's awesome. I know that. Deborah B. What caught my attention was that she said she irons and folds his t-shirt, yet the t-shirt he was wearing was wrinkled. Honestly, I can't make my mind up on stuff like that. Miss J. Why lie about being at the kennels? I agree. Why ask people to misstate facts? I agree. Why ask for the house to be cleaned? Where are the clothes? So you're going to convict somebody of murder based on that. I just can't. I personally cannot convict somebody of murder based on that. So he lied about 15 to 20 minutes versus 30 to 40 minutes. We look at the timeline. I don't see how that matters. Just Mike. Peter, at what point does enough circumstantial evidence accumulate to be compelling? I watch daily live with EDB and following you in the evening. Thank you, Just Mike. I think they've got to say, like, how did he hide the guns? People are asking me this a lot. Like, what would it take to get me there? I think SLED blew this investigation so much that I don't think they're going to have enough to get me there. I really don't. They would have needed some blood in the shower, just some blood somewhere, not even brown stuff, even blood at the kennels, but they didn't test it. I can't let them get away with an investigation like this and me think I'm going to convict people with this little evidence. T-Sky. If I was on the jury, I wouldn't trust the defense team. They're AM's friends and still stand by him after he stole money from clients. Are they shady like him? It's a good question. Andrea, I honestly can't convict him of pulling the trigger. I do ever believe he possibly set it up to happen. I'm tuned in to see till the end. Thanks for breaking this down so well. Congrats, by the way. Thank you. KJ, SLED let him change out of his clothes at the house. He grabbed clean white shirt and khakis to give to them. They smelled freshly laundered. So you're saying he changed after SLED got there? American Lady, redirect of Shelley stated AM1 after murders told her, if anyone asks you, I was here 30, 40 minutes on 6-7. That's why she called her brother. Correct. Aussie. In my opinion, he would have stayed at his mom's for 30 or 40 minutes if he was needing a stronger alibi. He returned quickly. Your thoughts, Peter? One of my grandmothers suffered from a stroke and then dementia. And I will say that sometimes it feels like you're there with them longer than you are if they can't talk back to you and you're sitting with them and holding their hand and watching TV. I literally done that, brought her McDonald's lots of times when I was a kid, and it felt like and I was a kid, but it felt like we were there for a really long time when we weren't sometimes. CMC, do you think the judge is over their lack of following the rules and evidence at this point? Also, congrats on 200K. I hit 8 months as a member. CMC, the OG. And yes, that's why I played that clip. The judge just walked down. I was like, I'll let you guys argue with each other. I'm out of here. Deuces. Econ, do you think the judge has made up his mind and that's why he favors prosecution? That's how it seems to me. Judges cannot do that. He would never admit that. I don't know if he has or not. Katrina, whoever murdered Maggie and Paul, they knew they would be out on an unplanned and spontaneous gathering. Who knew they would be at Moselle? That's a good question. Not a lot of people, but more than just Alec Murdaugh. What's your sign? The defense contradicts himself by trying to imply that he had new clothes after losing weight and also couldn't wear a raincoat that was 2XL. So I will say it's not the defense that's contradicting. The defense has put on no witnesses yet. So it is the prosecution's witnesses who are contradicting this. Blanca said he wore the 2XL, and she's talking about in a timeline. At the time this happened, he was a 2XL, couldn't have fit in a large, didn't have that raincoat. But later when he was buying new clothes, which was months later, I guess, he had lost weight. But Blanca is the one making those statements, not the defense. It's not a defense witness. Tom Baker, where'd the $8.5 million go? He did not have assets or property to explain what the root cause of this. He was involved in something else. Yeah, very well could be, although he owed a lot of people money. Alexandra, his life was about to start to fall apart and his family was about to find out who he really was. He didn't want to lose the perfect husband, father figure his family had of him, so he killed two of them. I just don't know if that doesn't make sense to me. Thank you, Leanne. Thank you, AK, for joining the membership crew, and Nelly for the super sticker. All right, let's talk about some of the other witnesses. The caregiver, again, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. It was unusual, but not strange that he would show up at night. And on 6/6, Maggie and Alex showed up with Krispy Kreme. And then we got to the FBI agent Wild, who, yes, we're getting to the phone pings. But he said they're not pings. He basically said they were in Moselle around the time we thought they were in Moselle. Okay. Basically confirming that, but also said that Verizon doesn't ping, or whatever this was, these non-pings, doesn't happen for just texts. It only happens with calls or when they're getting on the internet or doing certain things like that, or like filming videos. So he basically explained to us, this is barely helpful because it also sometimes shows up in the wrong spot and pings off the wrong tower because it's a stronger connection with a further away tower. So what I got from his testimony is most of the cell phone data is completely worthless. I hope it goes better in the Brian Kohberger trial. And then he got Eddie Smith's. He did gather the data, but he didn't actually get it and analyze it, which is weird. On redirect, the state just wanted to confirm you can't testify whether Maggie's phone was anywhere near any other phone in the world. Could you? No, I can't confirm that. Why would the prosecutor want to point out what this expert can't confirm with their expert data? Very weird. Then we hear from Nathan Tootin, who's a cop, childhood friends with Paul. Paul was a great guy. He was at Moselle. They use this entrance in the back. The parents usually use the front entrance. Paul lost the .300 blackout. He says this gun is Paul's .300 blackout with the whatever it's called, the scope on it. And the defense is like, well, would it shock you to hear that's not the replacement because the replacement did not have the scope? So which is it? Does this guy know what he's talking about or does he not? And I think this is a good indication of a lot of times these witnesses follow the lead of the prosecution. They might not know some specifics. They might not know what changed. And that gun basically looked exactly the same, except this one had the scope. Paul's old one that he lost was tan with the scope. This was Buster's black with the scope. Paul got a replacement that was black without the scope. And so it just kind of made it look like maybe these witnesses are not like so strong for the prosecution, even with what is consistent. Thank you, Nalas. It's funny. So that wasn't so great, but he was a runner for the law firm. He used to run checks to get him cashed over at the bank we know gives Alec Murdaugh whatever he wants. And he would bring him back stacks of cash. He would have the police chief, Fleming, and Chris Wilson getting caught in the crosshairs here in these like shady meetings where cash was exchanging hands. And on cross, they're like, you're not saying he was paying off the police chief, are you? And that's what the AG was insinuating. You can't believe that, can you? Objection sustained. He's like, I'm not suggesting anything. I am not suggesting anything. And they got in, and then they set up this plane flight 4th of July weekend with Maggie's parents to the Keys. But did he actually go with Maggie's parents? Is that going to be something else that comes out? We'll see. Additionally, was it actually July 4th? Because whenever a defense lawyer is like, you sure it was July 4th weekend? And he says yes, that makes me think they've got something to contradict that. So we'll see. Paul lost his phone regularly. He would put it in his back pocket. I thought somebody else said he usually leaves it in his front pocket. More contradicting evidence and more, what does it prove? It popped out of his pocket. Who the heck knows what that means or when that means it. Loving relationship between Paul and Maggie and Alec Murdaugh. And then the best point on cross to me, besides the gun confusion, was Paul received threats. Yes. So all of his friends are confirming that he received threats. Now, some of them have tamed him down a little bit, but I thought that was a good point. And I thought the last couple witnesses were not great for the state and made a couple little points for the defense. I thought the state overwhelmingly won today because of Tinsley and Blanca, but I did think the defense kind of held their way. But Blanca was the most damning testimony with the shirt conversation, the things that were unusual that were happening around the house, the financial stresses, and he didn't tell her stuff, and he didn't tell her the whole story, and the wedding band was left behind, and some stuff like that, that if a juror wants to, it's not that hard to connect those dots. All right. 5 minutes and I'm out of here. Went way longer than I wanted to. I was trying to do 45 minutes tonight. Lauren L. Nathan felt important, but in a quieter way than Blanca. Did anyone else notice him say they would always stop by the kennels before leaving the property if they knew someone was down there? The defendant didn't address that either. But I mean, what this guy did and Paul's friends did is, does that mean Alec did it? Caitlin, am I the only one who feels some details state question some witnesses as if it's big, yet seems meaningless and begins to paint a witch hunt to Alec's guilt? I absolutely feel this way. I'm waiting for them. They're building up. And as I said in other videos, they don't have the goods. I have felt like this multiple times. Now, they have made some absolute good points, but other times I agree with you. There's some weird parts. I'm like, why'd you bring that up? Maybe there's more coming later, right? They still have another 3 days of evidence. So we heard the state's going to finish their case in chief Wednesday, and then the defense is going to start flying witnesses in. I think we have 2 more weeks. Keep seeing people saying he's obviously guilty, and while it might be obvious he did it, I don't think it's obvious he's guilty, if you know what I mean. I agree with you. Nala, he planned it to make no sense. He succeeded, and I do agree Sled blew it, but AM owned the cops, and who knows what happened before Sled arrived. $200K, yay. You're right. We don't know. Grant, I'm used to your courtrooms to be like Hollywood, but this is more like an Australian courtroom. Interesting. Mina Kim, I'm a member now. Congrats, Peter, on 200K. So happy for you. Love your insights. I appreciate what you do for us. Love from Cali. Get well soon. Thank you. Kim Ripley, I'm going to be great by the end of the weekend. I can already feel it. My voice recovered well in one day, although my wife's gone, so I don't know if I'm going to get my tea tonight. Kim Ripley, I don't see the clothes buying as a big deal at all. Every time I travel, I end up needing something that I didn't bring. Congrats. I agree with you. It's a point they made as if it's some big point. If the guy bought new clothes, it's like, oh, he's spending all this money he found, or he must be replacing the 2 pair of shoes and the 2 shirts that are gone. It's like, I don't get it. Future speech path here. Pathologist, vocal rest, warm liquids, lozenges, and humidifier for that voice, sir. Congrats on 200K. We appreciate you. I will at least do some warm liquids and some lozenges tonight. I don't have a humidifier. We have them in my kids' rooms. I don't even know where they are. JP, Shelly Smith said Alex doesn't come there at night, but Maggie told Blanca Alex leaves at night. Where is Alex going at night? I mean, we know he's doing drugs and nobody knows about it. Netwoman and Julie, some new members. Cerebellum, any chance Sled changed their mind midway through investigation, trying to conceal, then trying to convict, because this whole case is bungled. Yet prosecution is going hard at AM. Congrats on 200K. God bless. Thank you so much, Cerebellum. And I think that's very plausible. Very, 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 very plausible that they changed their mind midway through. Suzanne Kane, thank you so much for the super sticker. Clarifying, he said the fam did it, not friends. Fam did it, not friends. I don't know what that means. Oh, the family. Okay, when by the kennels. Okay, all right, that's fair. I must have missed that. Athena, this is a very weird phone call I'm getting. Athena, could someone he defrauded killed his wife and son, hoping he would be blamed? I don't see him murdering his wife and son. It's a choose your own adventure at this point, because I think that's just as plausible as any other explanation. Michelle, I actually think the jury will convict him, but I don't think the state has proven it, but it's a different world there. I feel for the judge. Marnie Knight, I love your unbiased reporting and on the important parts of the day. I learned so much from you and your enthusiasm for the law. Congratulations on 200K. Recap, not a reporter. That's just a joke for anybody that's been around for some of the other stuff. Kathy, again, I say the investigation was flawed. Why was that ring found in the vehicle after Sled checked it out? Like, the housekeeper is a better investigator than the Sled people? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Don, the only way the not wanting to lose face with his family is if Buster was somehow supposed to be at the house and canceled last minute. Need to find out his plans that day. That's a good point. I heard he's going to be a witness. Lauren L., congrats on 200K. Stoked for your growth. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you. If you haven't joined the subscriber crew, hit that subscribe button now before we leave. My kid's personal Uber driver, at least it finally felt like a murder trial today. I will give you that. It definitely felt more like a murder trial today. And it didn't go as well for the state as some of the other days. Java Mom 92, we're going to go out on your super sticker. I love you all. Thank you so much for joining me. Enjoy your weekend. Everybody rest up. I know I will. And we'll be back at it on Monday. Hit the like button on your way out. I am out of here.